Oh, hello there. Welcome to another video. Well, my name is Craig Roberts and I'm a photographer. Or am I? Well, I have a camera, several in fact, that I use to take photos. So I guess I am a photographer. But everyone has a camera these days, even if it's just a camera phone. So aren't we all photographers? What's the difference then? How am I different from anyone else? Now, once upon a time, I used to be a crap photographer, self-declared. And of course, many of you would say that wasn't long ago, Craig. Cheeky sods. But way back when I first started out, I was pretty rubbish. Terrible even. I guess we all are. But after practice, a lot of practice, no, really a lot of practice, I started getting better. Fast forward a few years and I got good enough to be able to call myself a photographer and therefore good enough to start selling my work. I knew how to use a camera. I knew how to take a photo. I knew my apertures from my shutter speeds. I learnt about light and I perfected composition. And more importantly, I could consistently capture an image good enough to sell. That mattered. And once all that is mastered, the technical aspect, you can then start taking pictures, good pictures, consistently. However, a change had to happen to progress on from that. A change that took me from that technical stage of my photography, taking nice pictures, to perhaps where I am now. Taking pictures with meaning, pictures with feeling, pictures that have the possibility to move the viewer in some way. I guess in many ways, the photographer most of you know me as now. The change was how I looked at photography, how I looked at the world and how I used my camera to explore that. The camera stopped being so important, stopped being just a tool, and in a way became an extension of me. But I also stopped being a photographer, or what I believed that to mean. I believed in myself and saw myself more as an artist. A photographer, I feel, is someone who is very technical, very efficient, very capable even. But an artist, well, an artist creates. So I stopped taking photos and started creating. A photographer perhaps often has all the best gear, the latest cameras, needs that. Whereas a creative person just uses the tool or whatever they feel is required for the creative vision they have in mind, which may not be the best, the most expensive, or even the latest. Now, I know this is starting to sound a bit pretentious. I'm an artist, not a photographer. And in a way, it's hard to describe this change without it sounding like that. But I, for one, am always the first to leave my ego at the door, though I no longer see myself simply as a photographer and I'm looking beyond that term. It's therefore hard to relate to the photographer I once was. I'm simply not taking the same images I used to, and that version of me wouldn't take the type of images that I now capture today. To see as I do, to capture the images I do now, I had to remove myself from the technical aspect in a way. Of course, I still use all the technical stuff. The exposure triangle, for example, is as important as it ever was. But now I'm using it more for creating. I don't need to think about the technical aspects to create, and that's very important too, for every photographer. I'm using the camera more now to help me create the version of the world that I see. Using a film camera again is also a very different experience to the one 20 years ago when I was only shooting film. But that again is part of the creative person I am now. If you have to ask me why I bother to shoot film, then I guess you don't fully understand the photographer I am now. Although that doesn't mean you have to shoot film yourself. But just be able to understand my reasons. So, my advice to you is to stop trying to be this idea of a photographer as quickly as you can. Don't get bogged down in the technique and skills. Don't get hung up on gear, lenses and perfection. Learn the basics, of course, and then just use whatever camera you can and use it well. Make mistakes, lots of them, and don't be afraid of doing that, as you can learn from them. That's exactly what I did, and I was wasting film when I did that. For you, it's probably free. And if half your YouTube viewing content is watching lens reviews and new camera releases, then you probably are still trying to be a photographer rather than a creative person. A typical photographer no doubt watches all the reviews looking for their perfect camera, when it's probably already in their hands. They research and scrutinise all the lens reviews looking for the perfect optic, as if all that matters. When you realise it doesn't, when you realise the sharpest isn't always the best or going to help you produce your best work, then you can start to create. My other advice for you, once the gear issue is addressed, is not to copy others. Don't copy what everyone else is doing, but instead create your own ideal. Create your own vision, your own style, and your own way of capturing the world. Forget megapixels, ignore the so-called rules of photography, and definitely don't buy other photographers' presets. It's the only way to make your work unique and different from everyone else's. I believe my work is unique, and that's what spurs me on. Others may not like it, but that's just their opinion. I'm here to please me, not anyone else, not even you. And the same applies to these videos, in fact. I make videos that I want to make, that I feel add value, and YouTube may not agree with that. You may not agree with that. My views may not agree with that either, but that will never change my approach. I taught myself photography, but I also learnt a lot from the greats. Photographers such as Charlie Waite, Michael Kenner and Brooklyn Beckham. But I never set out to copy them. They all inspired me in some way, as many others have since. And the only thing they have all done is given me ideas about how I wanted my own photography to be. You, therefore, have to find your own vision. YouTube is great for learning and picking up endless tips from your favourite YouTuber. But when do you let go? When do you have to discover the rest for yourself? So, to be able to create images that revealed the real me, I had to forget I was a photographer. Try not to label myself as that, and instead just be someone who happens to use a camera to make the images in my imagination. There's a difference. I have a different camera for different occasions and shoots, so I choose the one that I feel is going to allow me to produce the best result, be that film or digital, mirrorless or a simple compact camera. I don't need something expensive or on trend, I just use the one that suits me. One of the best things I ever did was ditch the tripod, as again, that was part of the old me. That, in a way, was restricting me. That choice, tripod or no tripod, is up to you, of course. I also ditched full frame, another part of the photographer I used to be. Right at the time, but would be wrong for me now. That doesn't add any value to me. I have gone back to shooting medium format film again, very much part of the photographer I once was, but again, it's very different now, used with different intent. So, whatever you refer to yourself as, it's up to you. Content creator, artist, or just a photographer simply because you do happen to use a camera. But don't let that define you too much. Don't let a particular camera brand define who you are either, and therefore only define who you actually are by the images you create with that camera. I hope that helps, and I'll see you next time.